Relationships are complex and ever-changing, and sometimes it's hard to tell when things are genuinely off track. Knowing how to identify the warning signs is essential, especially since they can show up in different ways. Let's go through some of the most common red flags and how to recognize them even in their subtle forms. Number 1. Communication breakdown. Communication is the backbone of any healthy relationship. One of the most telling signs that something isn't right is when conversations start to feel rare, shallow, or forced. You might notice that your partner becomes less open about their thoughts or feelings, or you may feel like you're talking but not really being heard. Sometimes communication breakdown shows up as a lack of meaningful dialogue. You're exchanging words but not truly connecting. Other times, it could be an increase in misunderstandings or defensiveness whenever you try to discuss something important. It's crucial to notice when communication patterns change because unresolved issues can start piling up and widening the gap between you. Addressing these changes early with open, honest dialogue can help rebuild that crucial connection. Number 2. Decreased intimacy. The next point is intimacy, both physical and emotional. Intimacy isn't just about physical closeness. It's also about sharing your thoughts, feelings, and vulnerabilities with one another. A sign that intimacy is fading can be when affectionate gestures become rare, or deep conversations feel like a thing of the past. You might also notice variations in how intimacy decreases. Sometimes it's gradual, a slow decline in touch, compliments, or romantic gestures. Other times it's sudden and noticeable, like going from constant closeness to almost no affection at all. Rebuilding intimacy takes intention and effort from both partners. Small, thoughtful actions, like sharing a compliment or planning a simple date, can help rekindle that sense of connection. Number 3. Frequent arguments. Another sign is when disagreements become a constant part of your relationship. Occasional arguments are normal, but when every small issue turns into a major fight, it could mean underlying frustrations aren't being addressed. Frequent arguments can look different depending on the relationship. Sometimes they're explosive and loud, while other times they're more subtle, like passive-aggressive comments or silent treatments that drag on for days. In both cases, unresolved conflicts can pile up and create lingering tension. It's important to find ways to communicate calmly and address problems as they arise rather than letting them fester. Practicing patience and setting ground rules for fair fighting can help diffuse conflicts before they escalate. Number 4. Emotional withdrawal. The next point to watch for is emotional withdrawal. This happens when one or both partners start to pull back emotionally, becoming distant, unresponsive, or uninterested in sharing their feelings. You might sense a lack of enthusiasm in conversations or feel like your partner is just going through the motions. Emotional withdrawal can vary in how it shows up. Sometimes it's subtle, like a gradual loss of enthusiasm, while other times it's abrupt, where they suddenly seem cold or uninterested. Either way, it leaves you feeling isolated and disconnected. Acknowledging this early on and talking openly about how you feel can create an opportunity to reconnect. It's important to express your concerns without assigning blame and encourage honest conversations to rebuild trust. Number 5. Loss of trust. Another red flag is when trust starts to erode. Trust issues can show up as doubts, secrecy, or feeling suspicious about your partner's actions. You might notice inconsistencies in what they say or feel uneasy about their behavior without fully understanding why. Sometimes a lack of trust comes from a specific incident, like discovering dishonesty, while other times it builds up gradually from repeated broken promises or unexplained changes in behavior. Regardless of how it shows up, feeling unsure about your partner's honesty can deeply affect your sense of security in the relationship. Rebuilding trust takes consistent transparency and a willingness to address concerns openly. It requires both partners to be committed to honesty and accountability. Number 6. Different priorities. The next point is about priorities drifting apart. As life changes, it's natural for goals and values to evolve, but when they no longer align between partners, it can feel like you're heading in completely different directions. You might notice that what once brought you together no longer feels as important, or that compromise becomes harder to achieve. This could show up as disagreements over career choices, lifestyle preferences, or even future plans. Openly discussing your priorities and listening to each other's perspectives can help identify where your paths diverge. Finding common ground takes understanding and flexibility, but it's key to maintaining a balanced relationship. Number 7. Resentment and bitterness. Lastly, be mindful of lingering resentment and bitterness. Over time, negative feelings can overshadow positive memories, making it hard to recall good times without frustration. This often happens when unresolved issues pile up or when one partner feels unappreciated or misunderstood. Resentment can appear in different forms, sometimes as quiet bitterness that builds over time or as sharp, cutting remarks during arguments. Regardless of how it manifests, it's a sign that unspoken feelings have been pushed aside for too long. Addressing resentment requires acknowledging past hurts and committing to open, honest dialogue. Focusing on rebuilding positive interactions and practicing forgiveness can help clear the air and move forward. Moving forward with intention. Recognizing these warning signs can feel overwhelming, but identifying them early on gives you a chance to address them constructively. Whether you choose to rebuild the relationship or move on, remember that your well-being matters most. Choosing to prioritize your happiness and emotional health is an act of self-love. Trust yourself to make choices that honor your needs and your heart. You deserve a relationship that brings you peace, connection, and joy. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.